This is Late Night Health. This is the radio show that cares about the most important part of your life, your health. During the next hour, the insane Daryl Wayne and I are going to take a look at some things that touch each and every one of us. During the second part of our show, we're going to talk about women's health. And we're going to find out where we are with women's health with a writer who covers that topic and find out what's going on. During the first part of our show, we're going to go to North Carolina and we're going to spend some time with Veenu Keller. She's the parent-child whisperer. Do you do husbands and wives as well, Veenu?
I do. I work with the family altogether. I have worked with couples that don't have kids. And but generally I work with couples that have kids and are trying to get on the same page. I really just help parents decode the communication that their kids are giving them now so they can have a better bond and enhance the bond that they have with each other.
Do you have kids?
I do. I have 6.
No way.
Yes, and I have 2 grandkids.
Oh my goodness. Well, I want to let me talk to them. I want to find out how you're doing with them.
You might not get the right answers with them.
Oh,
So
got it. I get
let
it.
me translate. I'll translate their answers.
All right. Yeah, I get it. So let's take a look at something. I know one guy. He's in his early 70s. He still blames his father on a lot of his life issues. Um, I happen to know this guy, and I know that his father, whatever his father did, he deserved it. He was a bratty kid. He was. He was a terrible kid. He's not so great as an adult either, but as a kid, he was rotten. Are we programmed to screw up our kids?
If we are not doing the healing that we need to do, and we're going to constantly blame our parents, and then our parents are going to blame their parents, then yes, we are glutton for punishment. We're glutton for the pain and the blame that our kids are going to give us. And I used to do the same thing. I used to be like, I am a product of my environment. I am a product of my parents' raising. And so it's not my fault. When I get out of that mindset, though, and I start to realize that my parents did the best that they could do with the resources that they had, and they loved me enough to do it the way that they thought was going to benefit me. And then as I grew up and I became an adult, I have my own free will to make the choices that I want to make. And, I have kids that range from the age of 30 and 25 to almost 12-year-old twins. And I
My
was
mouth
very,
is open because you look so young.
thank you. Thank you.
You should add secrets of beauty and longevity to your list of credits.
That's another call. We'll do that
Yeah.
next time.
Yes.
And so what I have found, Mark, is that the way I raised my older boys as a single mom and the way that I get to raise my twins with my current husband is so different. And I realize that it's a compliment when my children say, you raise them so differently, because if you know better, you can do better. And honestly, that is why I'm on this earth, to learn better, to do better, and help parents do better. So I'm not blaming my mom. I used to. And my kids used to blame me. And now that I tell them is I own what I did as I raised them. I own the yelling. I owned the grounding. I owned the blaming and shaming them. And now I tell them, what do you want to do as adults now? How do you want to be different for your kids? What could you learn from what I did with you to do different and do better with your kids? And, we said, oh, let's get them on. And I jokingly say this is that, but yet I'm serious. I'm still learning. I'm still going through my own growth spurts. I, and just I'm very transparent because I want people to learn. And so I've done Tony Robbins for 14 years. Or 15 years. I'm a trainer for him. I am a speaker on his stage, on Joseph McClendon's stage. I also do journeys with plant medicine to get out of my conscious ego mind, to recognize the wounds that I have carried throughout my childhood that I allow to kind of blame them instead of change them.
When
And
when we take a look at our parents, though, our parents aren't perfect. We're not perfect, right? So maybe the parents screw up in some way. Maybe dad is away a lot because he's working to
right,
provide food and a roof over our head and some new jeans. Um, Mom is involved with other kids who may need more attention than you do. Okay. And you feel a little bit alone. Okay. Even though you're in a family. I mean, you go to New York City with what, 7 million people, 8 million people? You can be, it's the loneliest place in the world. It can be.
right.
So in a family of 4, 5, in your case, 8, 6, whatever, you can still feel lonely.
Mm.
But parents, I guess, need to learn how to have kids.
I think what parents need to learn is that they're how do we love our kids? It's how to love our kids. It's how to love our kids, putting strict guidelines and telling them and dictating to them, or how to love our kids is asking them, what do you need from me to know you're loved, safe, and secure? What can I do differently? What am I doing now that makes you feel unsafe, unloved, and unsecure? And how could I change that with you? Because there's many books on this earth that if we read, we can say, oh, that's the way I'm going to be a conscious parent because that's what seems to work. Well, what if it doesn't work with your kids? I'm the person that says, take away the labels of what we need to do as parents. Like, I don't need to be a conscious parent. I don't need to be a bulldozer parent. I don't need to be a helicopter parent. I need to be the parent that my child needs me to be in that moment so they feel safe, secure, and loved and
How do
heard
you,
and seen.
how do you know that? In other
I
words,
ask them. I ask them.
you
At
ask them what the kid needs?
I ask them, I say, what do you need right now? So when my daughter's saying, I don't see, my mom doesn't hear me, or it's easier to talk to my dad than my mom because my mom's too busy. Okay. In my mind, I am too busy, but in her mind, I'm too busy in certain times she needs me to be unbusy. So I ask her, how could I do better? What could I do to let you know that I'm not too busy for you? It's understanding that our kids' brains are not developed yet. And yes, to see them as their own individual person, but also to see them as knowing that their brains aren't developed in a way that ours are. So they don't even have the first notion of how to feel protected and safe if we can't help them understand that.
But at the same time, I believe that our brains aren't fully functional till you're over 40. We're
Interesting.
still, right? We're fetuses until that point.
You know,
Okay.
I definitely could support that being 50 now. I'm like, 50 is my best years now. I went through everything and now I'm at 50. But yes, and they say scientifically the brain is fully developed in males at 28 and women 25. And I get that from Dr. Amen, who has done an extensive
Mark
study on
Heyman.
the human brain. Yes, Dr. Amen.
Yeah.
And so I'm citing his work, what I've learned from him. But I agree with you is now that our brain is developed, what do we do with that information and how do we access those areas of the brain to help us make better choices for what we want in life? So I could agree with you that, we're not using it to the capacity until we're about 40. And
Right.
yet we have to get even like with couples, when couples aren't working out, it's normally by the definition they're giving things. Like we have different meanings for love. We have different meanings for trust. We have different meanings. And when we set these expectations of, oh, you understand what I mean, and that's how you're going to love me, and they don't meet that expectation, what happens? We don't feel loved. We don't feel seen. We don't feel anything coming from our spouse. And then we start to feel that gap, that loneliness.
And often this one spouse will say it's your job, and the other one will say it's your job, and nothing gets done. Our guest is Veenu Keller from Veenu Inspires, and you can visit her at venueinspires.com. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. If you go to latenighthealth.com, you'll see a pretty picture of Veenu and a link to her information, including how to get her newsletter and all kinds of things. We're going to take some time out. We'll be back as we explore parents and kids here on Late Night Health. Don't go away. More coming up. Late Night Health continues. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. We're talking about parents and kids right now. I've learned that I think children are very resilient. Okay, and when they're young, they're it's unrequited. It's not. It's just pure love back to the parent. You can, you hear these horrible stories about kids who were abused in one way or another, yet they're resilient. They love their mom, their dad. It's later on when they're maybe in their early teens that they realize this isn't right.
Right.
Is that how does that translate into all kids?
Well, I think that once we get old enough and that we move out and we start our lives, we start to reflect on what is great in my life and what's not so great in my life. What did I overcome? Is something else coming up that I have to overcome again? And what did I learn from the first time? And that's kind of where we build up resilience, right? When we get back up on our feet. And I think right now we need to really look at the world and the way the world is and how it's growing. Because I was born as a Gen X kid. I was a latchkey kid. I was a typical kid who drank out of the water hose. When the streetlights came on, I knew I had to come in. There was already boundaries implemented that we didn't even have to ask. We just knew what the rules were and we followed them and we did them. And we didn't get spanked. We lived another day to go back to school, wash and repeat. Now I find parents that don't know how to track their kids except for on their devices. The boundaries are so fluid that kids don't even recognize what the boundaries are. And when they go past the boundaries, there's not really consequences. Parents are doing their kids' homework now, and teachers aren't sending it back saying, okay, I can tell that you did this, not your kid. There's a lot of that going on. And kids don't know how to communicate with each other because, you tell a kid, oh, I'm bored. It's okay, go outside and figure out what you want to do, just like we did. And we would build forts, we would climb trees. Our imagination went crazy. Kids don't have that now. Their imagination is on video games. Their
That's right.
imagination is on cell phones and, talking, like not even talking, texting to each other. I don't even know sometimes the language my clients use because they use 3-letter words like BRB. And I'm like, what does that mean? Oh, be right back. It's like you have to sift through their vocabulary. And parents, even if you want to check their text message, it's all in these codes that you don't understand the language anyway. And it's like, when do we get back to understanding what world our kids are in and how do we want to raise them? It's no longer a world that we get to dictate to our kids and they follow. We have moved into a world that we have to guide them. And guiding them does not mean picking them up every time they fall, because that's what a lot of parents are doing right now. They think, oh, I'm going to be a bad parent if my kids fail. No, you're a good parent if your kids fail because you're allowing them to get the natural consequences of their action. Because let's face it, when we're adults, that's what we're constantly facing is the consequences for the actions that we choose to take or choose not to take.
You mentioned, I remember drinking out of the garden hose.
And
I
we're still
remember,
alive.
huh? Yeah, and
And
you're
we're still
still right.
alive.
I remember driving in cars without seatbelts,
Yes, me too.
right? I mean, that's probably too much information. Um, it's but I guess that you're right. Kids, I remember my kids saying, "I'm bored." Okay, read a book, go outside. Um, and kids don't do that as much as you and I did, and Daryl did, riding our bikes.
Right.
Um, uh, I'm building a fort. God, that was fun. Climbing trees. I mean, all of that has technology. I'm holding up my cell phone to you right now. Has that impacted life, technology, especially on kids?
Absolutely. It absolutely has an impact on their life. And there's been great impacts from it, and there's been not so great impacts from it. I think that as a kid, I would ride my bike down the street, across the park to my friend's house. And as long as I was home, by the time the streetlights came on, I was good. There was nobody. I mean, I would have to maybe call from my friend's house that, hey, I made it. But in that 15 minutes or 20 minutes of riding my bike, my mom didn't know if I made it or not. And yet we were trusted to go do that. And I'm going to tell you, I live in a very nice neighborhood. And I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, do not leave this house without your cell phone. So you can call me if something happens.
How
And
old, wait a second. How old are your kids? The kids that are at home?
they're almost 12. They're twins.
They're twins at 12 and they
Mhm.
have cell phones?
They have a cell phone that can only talk and text. It's called a gab phone. There's no internet. There's no apps. There's nothing on it. It's a call and text only phone.
Got it. And they can only call mommy and daddy, and that's probably a good thing. All right.
Yep.
Let's make a kid older. Let's say that they're in their late teens, early 20s, they're on a date and they are glued to their phones. They're
No
not
connection.
talking back and forth.
There's no connection. Go to a restaurant. Like I would challenge all your
Yeah.
listeners. The next time you go to a restaurant, just sit there and look around. 80% to 90% of people in that restaurant will be on their cell phone
Right.
at the same table as they're like everyone. Like I see families that are on their devices the whole time. And again, what are we teaching our kids? We're not, and then we're wondering why suicide is up, why cutting is up with kids. There's no connection, there's no belonging. We all want to feel like we belong. When we look at these mass shootings that are going on, you know, do you think it's a kid that felt that they belonged that did it?
Yeah. I mean,
No.
there's the parents who are going to jail for
Right.
giving their mentally ill child a gun, and he went out and killed people.
Right. And they should be. I mean, I absolutely feel
Absolutely.
the parents should have been prosecuted. There's some things that our kids do that the parents have no idea, or the parents are actually seeking help. I've worked with people that have made threats to schools and stuff, and they're expelled. And then I start coaching them, and we really start diving in deep. And the kid wasn't going to do it. He didn't have the means to do it. But the fact that he said it, and guess what? When I talked to the parents had them in mental health. The parents had them in therapy. They had no access to guns. Everything was locked up. Like the parents took precaution. And they are not trying to defend their kid. They're trying to help their kid. And those are the parents. That's what we need more of. We need more parents saying something is not right with my kid. I need to be more active in their life. I need to protect them and protect society.
What about, with all the activities that kids do, ballet, dance, gymnastics, uh, sports, all these things after school, having to put and doing all this stuff. You and I didn't have that. Maybe we had, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I did when I was a kid. I don't. I went to Hebrew school twice a week until I was like 13, and after that, done. Um, we didn't have all these activities. I mean, I had some sports things, and I was terrible at it. But are we over subscribing our kids? And we only have a minute left, so we're going to have to continue this.
Yes. So, real quick, I also think that we're keeping our kids so busy because we're afraid that if their minds are idle, they'll get into problems. And so, again, I think it's probably another call, but we have to look at, because my kids have tutoring, sports, dance, like they're busy. And what we've done is we now there has to be at least 2 days. Like they could just be a kid. They don't
That's
have any
great.
responsibilities. They can come home, they can lounge, they can relax, they can play without we got to go here, we got to go there.
Got it. We are out of time, Veenu. I really appreciate your time. Listen, go to Veenu Inspires. That's VEENU inspires.com. And if you missed that, you'll have it up on our website once the show is aired. Hey, thank you very much, Veenu. Hold on just 1 second. I'm Mark Alyn, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. Coming up, we're going to talk about women's health. It kind of dovetails, I think, into what we've been talking about with parentings. Our guest is Rena First. and she'll be up in just a couple of seconds. Don't go away as Late Night Health continues.